My grandma loved who I was. She didn't try to make me someone. She didn't try to turn me into something or do anything. It was like she loved me for me, and she was my stepdad's mom. She's not even blood to me.
I think love is a feeling. Love is also a choice. I also think that there is inherent, what I'm going to call legacy love, and then there is earned love.
I'm literally the first person in my family to get married before having kids. I'm the first person in my family to get married before moving in together. One of the things that changed my life was...
What's going on, everybody? We are back again for another episode of Flipping the Lid, and I love these shows. I talk to you often about what we do and why we do it in the beginning of them, but today I just can't even get right there because my ADD is taking over. Why? Because one of my favorite humans happens to be here today. And I know that might sound a little crazy because you've also heard me say I like lots of people, I do, but this is an individual from the second I met him, and every time I see him, he almost makes my soul smile, right? And had a chance to get to know him a couple of years back, built a great friendship, had the privilege of walking alongside him for a portion of his journey. And I've just continued to see him just take over and continue to make impact in his world. He's referred to as the Migraine Doc, but he is so much more than that. He's a father who lights up every time I know that he engages with his kids. He's a husband who just adores his wife and actually is driven a lot in ways to support and benefit her. But this man has a heart that's palpable, and he always is using his knowledge to demonstrate his heart through his hands. So Brandon, bro, dude, I am so happy you are here. Brandon Brown, I called you bro. I just want to make sure everybody hears your name, Dr. Brandon Brown, because you're a big deal.
I appreciate that. I think I'm going to start having to invite you anywhere I go. Just, hey, Brian is my intro guy. He goes up. He kind of
really
lets
good
everybody.
Hype man.
Yeah, he sets the stage, and then I can go on after that and then hopefully deliver.
Flavor Flav! I got you, bro. I got you, man. No, but I mean, I'm serious, dude. I genuinely feel that level of connection with you, and I always have. And, I've never actually thought about this until this moment. And I hope you take this from a place of respect. But it's like, it's almost like you're a little brother for me. And I know that might sound a little silly, but like, I care about you and love you in that same way. I'm like, but at the same time, I get excited every time I see your face. And so I gave a high level intro based on my experience with you and whom I believe you to be. And the only question I ask on both shows is, outside of however I introduce you, who are you in your words, my friend?
Oh, golly. Why you got to make me think that hard this immediately right off the bat? I mean, you did a really good job of describing it. The things that I'm proud to when people talk to me about, first, I obviously talk about the things around me, the things I think that make me me, my wife, my kids, the things that I'm like, if you want to understand me, this is a reflection of me. These are mini versions of me. This is my best friend and partner that walks through every single thing in my life with me. The good things, the bad things, the tough things, this is impossible to overcome things. She has been there with me through all of those things. I mean, I would say one of the things that's really been on my heart a lot lately, I just recently lost my grandmother, and she was really one of my heroes without me realizing it until she was gone. But she taught me a lot of important principles. And one of the things that I think she did without realizing it was, when you were in her inner circle, when you were her family, when you were her people, she protected you. She loved you. Like, those were your people. You take care of your people. You give them a space when they need it. You feed them when they need it. You help them when they need it. You show up when they need it. And without realizing it, but the more I reflect back on stuff that she taught me, she was probably one of the toughest people that I know. I have literally watched her try to get in fight with people that were like coming onto her property. And like, she was a very no bullshit person. But I think for me, without realizing it, it's like, man, there are so many things that make me who I am. She was also one of the people that knew my love for music. I am a music just nut. I love music. Music is sort of my safe space that I can go to when I'm overwhelmed, when there's too many things going on. It's like, I can drive around, I can listen to some music, I can calm my system back down, and I can kind of get back to a level place where I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can get back to, what do I need to do? What's got to happen? Sometimes just things become too much and too overwhelming. It's like, I need something. when I think back, it's like she was the one who supported me with that. She used to, you know, back in the day, we used to get these things in the mail, and then you would check off the things that you wanted on it in this little, you know, brochure thing, and then you'd mail it in, and then they would send it to you. So she would order me like 6 cassettes at a time of these different bands. And so I got exposure to all of this music. She bought me my first CD player with the NSYNC Bumblebee CD in it. So there's all these just like random things that as I think back, like, who am I? And all these things, like, man, so much of it ties back to the memories that I have with her and the things that she taught me that helped me become who I am. And, you know, that for me is one of the things. If you're one of my people, because I know you talked about that before, like, it is very interesting. I always sort of say, like, I find my people pretty quickly, and like the people who I get really close with, it's fast. I did that with my wife. I have done that with a lot of my best friends. I just, something about my soul knows good people. And when I know good people, I'm just like, oh, you're just a good person. Like, hey, we're just going to be. And I think, you know, guys just also always have this ability of like, I may not have talked to you in, you know, 15 months, 3 days, 4 hours, and whatever it is. But as soon as I see you again, it's like, we're right back where we were instantly and immediately. And this is what happened. I went on your Instagram live show. That was basically immediately what happened. We hop on, we start jamming almost immediately. And it was like, okay, we've got to set up. Yeah, we got to set up something here.
Yeah. I mean, it was obvious, and just, it was too easy. Right. And I really enjoyed being able to have you jump into the live. The first thing I want to say and acknowledge is, brother, man, I really, my heart goes out to you for the loss of your grandma. And, you know, I don't think you even expected to talk about her for as much in that portion of that answer as you did. But you said something that really jumped out at me. And there's a lot in there that I'm going to slow down and pull into different portions of this discussion. I could have never imagined that it would be starting this way, but you just said something that hit me really hard. She was one of my heroes, but I didn't realize it until she was gone. Mm-hmm. And why that hit me so hard is, I would suggest that statement would land for many people as it relates to somebody that was important to them, that they didn't get the chance to either know it, acknowledge it, or, you know, really capture the full experience of who that person was while they were with us, but instead why they were gone. It's the same thing as I'm trying to look for evidence in my own life that I'm already living the life that I've always been working towards, which is true. Right. But it's easy to forget those things in moments if I'm not careful and always looking for that evidence, which is all around me all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't necessarily want to get super deep and ethereal that's maybe not specific to you, because I always like to have this be 100% about you. But why is it that you believe that people don't appreciate sometimes their heroes, or even realize that they are one until they're gone?
I mean, as cliche as it is on the internet today, it's just a lack of gratitude. We have unawareness. I think we like to disassociate to a level that just leaves us unplugged to be ultimately plugged into the things that we should be grateful for, that we should be glad that we have. And this is all the way down to the air that I can breathe right now so that I can sit here and talk to you. This is all the way down to the guy who invented this chair that I'm sitting in right now so I can be able to sit here comfortably and talk to you. I feel like a lot of times that stuff can get lost, and, you know, hindsight, as they say, is always much clearer. I think when you look back on that, it just gives you this ability to go, you know, up. I didn't expect that to come up either, but it's like, I think the reason I talk about, hey, how does that make me me? It's because my grandma loved who I was. She didn't try to make me someone. She didn't try to turn me into something or do anything. It was like, she loved me for me, and she was my stepdad's mom. She's not even blood to me, but the way that she treated me and my mother and brought us into their family and took care of us, I think was something that inherently, without knowing it, I knew my mother needed, but also I needed too. And so when I reflect back and look at it, it's a love that's not like, let me try to get you to contort into what I need you to become because I didn't get to do this, or I didn't get to become this, or I never got to live this out. It's no, I love you for who you are, for who you want to be, for
Yeah.
the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes, it didn't matter what it was. I could always fall in that.
First side of that, though, if we're honest with ourselves, even really love? If we want to change somebody, contort them, have them fit in boxes, and it's not that we don't love them, but are those actions an expression of love?
The easy answer is no. The hard answer is a lot of people would have to wrestle with what they actually think that is and what it describes. Bingo. I think we can definitely say, oh, this is what it is. I think I've always wrestled with, the common phrase is unconditional love. And I'm like, I don't know if I fully believe in that, because I think love actually probably does have some conditions to it. And there might be some aspects that are unconditional. It's like, I can't explain it. I can't go in, but there probably are also some buffers and bumpers within that it's like, well, it's not just going to be whatever. So it's a constant wrestling with this. I don't know. As you could tell, it's like, we'll get into a conversation of like, how clear and how deep can we get just on something that is that simple of like, how do we love someone? How do we show up for them? Because it's hard. I mean, I'm sure as a dad too, that is one of my big focuses and one of my affirmations to myself is like, it ain't about me. I'm interested in whatever 100%. They're interested in. I don't care if it's pickleball or chess or I like drawing this. It's like, I want to be into whatever they're into, because what matters most to me is the relationship that I'm going to get to have with them.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so I think it's interesting because you kind of challenge this idea of unconditional love. And again, I'm going to stay on this string for a second, bro, just because I love just jamming with you on random shit. But this is also random but real. And you talked about this idea of unconditional love. You're a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me unconditional love doesn't exist.
I can't.
Right. And so I think what I was trying to suggest, and through the lens of condition, I think it also helps us see, you talked about it's not the kind of love that wants to confine you into a box. I would consider that conditional love, not unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenged in the beginning whether or not it was love, but I would suggest that there is a way that is love and can come through as love. And to your point, that comes down to the definition. But it's when there are no restrictions, constraints, or conditions for me to love you, which means it has nothing to do with what you do. It has everything to do with who you are. And I would suggest that your heart has the capacity for that with your kids, because that's who you are.
So we can just go ahead, because
did you say holy shit? By the way, there was a little lag in the so I couldn't tell what hit you.
No, I think this is great, and we've talked about so many things. Like I want to just pause for a moment for the people listening, and hopefully if you're hanging with us, it's like, I don't think people understand, like, if you're in your life and you're struggling and you're just like, man, I can't live like this. You're experiencing maybe what are the first ever panic attacks or these feelings inside of your body that you cannot explain. I want you to know, I understand that. I've been there. I never knew till I went through it. And the person I'm sitting here talking to you guys with today is the person who was a part of my journey to literally help me get my life back on track, save my life, guide me so that I could get things back on track and that not be the thing that literally just completely derailed my life, because it was absolutely possible. Now, with that, we've dove into a lot of things. What's interesting is maybe in the definition of love, we have to understand that maybe there is unconditional love, but maybe the conditions are more in what you said, the person, it's about who you are. So where this comes from for me is I'll give you an example. My relationship with my dad is not great right now. So one of the things that comes up one of the things that hurts me often is like, I see people that it's like, oh my gosh, who's your hero? And a son almost immediately is always going to say his dad. Well, unfortunately for me, that's not where I default or go to. And there's certain circumstances, which for his own stuff, I don't have to get into, but it's like, for me, I've had to create certain conditions that what I feel like protect my family in certain circumstances for me to just be like, hey, I wouldn't say that it changes the fact that whether I love you or not, I absolutely love you, but there are certain boundaries for me. And I would actually say that they go back to a little bit of confusion on my part of just like, I'm not quite sure who I'm talking to and who I'm interacting with.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've had to be like, cool. I've been gifted the ability to protect my tribe. And in that, it's taught me a lot. And it's just like, hey, I'm still trying to wrestle with this of like, that's hard, but it's still okay to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think dude, I want to keep playing on this idea because I think it's not only relevant for you, but it is a very relevant topic overall. And I'm going to interview you. We're going to feature you and all these things. But yet why I think this is also so natural and so easy is because I said it in the beginning, your heart is palpable. And I think that you exist in a place where you attempt to love first and love unconditionally in as many situations as you can. And I think that's felt by your kids, your wife, everyone who interacts with you, your patients, the people you heal, all of it. So it's a very relevant topic because the sidebar with your grandma is actually putting us into what I think your language is, which is the language of love in everything that you're trying to accomplish. And so it may seem unrelated and unrelevant, I don't think, to you, but the reason I'm giving that caveat is to the listeners, because this is one of those that I don't prescript these shows. I don't write questions. I don't have a very insane intake form. I don't reference it and read it the whole time, but I do intuitively follow where I think the conversations need to go. And I think that this is a relevant one. I've said for a long time, and I believe this deeply, Brandon. And I learned this through my parents and witnessing them. And then in my own marriage as well. I think love is a feeling. Love is also a choice, right? I also think that there is inherent, what I'm going to call legacy love. And then there is earned love. And I want to be clear when I say this, earned not through requirement, right? Through consistency and trust.
Not a checklist. It's not a checklist
exactly.
in order to earn it. Like, hey, do these things, you get it. It's not what you're meaning.
And so what you're talking about is a very complex thing. And I want to be clear, just like you did, is though I've talked about components of this in my own life, there are portions of this that are not my story to tell. And I mean no disrespect around this. We're in a really good place. We've gone through repair and recovery and all of this. But there was a period of time that my dad was not allowed to be with my kids alone for a little while. Mm-hmm. Not a very long period of time. It was a complicated window, lots that went into it. But the conversation I had to have with my dad was, it's my job to protect my kids, not to protect you. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, that does not mean that this will, like, I love you. You and I are going to continue to have our relationship.
Yep.
You'll still have your relationship with your grandkids, based on these boundaries.
Yep.
Right? And at the end of the day, whether he listens to this or not, I don't think I've ever said this part publicly. So I'm saying this on the show with you for the first time. And I think it's because I know and trust where I'm at with my dad. There was a while during this period that he said, Dad, he looked at me and he said, Brian, I feel like you want me to change who I am. And why I'm slowing down here is because, again, all the language that we just talked about connected this, and it's a highly relevant story. Because I looked at him and I said, Dad, I don't want to change who you are. In fact, I've never wanted to change who you are. And up to and including how much I don't want you to change, I contextually understand who you are. And I've even explained that to my kids, which is where there's lots of grace. Here's the reality. You're human. I'm human. We're very different people. We have different choices. We have different ways of operating. My only expectation, right? Now, there's some baseline ones that would have to exist safety-wise for this to be the only one.
Right.
But I said to him, Dad, my only expectation is that if you are made aware of an area that you created damage with myself or my family, all I ask is that you take ownership and attempt to create repair. That's it. Guess what? Is it going to happen again? Yeah. Are you going to be perfect? Absolutely not. I don't want you to change who you are, but what I'm hoping is that you will care enough about the relationship on the other side that you can look yourself in the mirror in those moments and at least say, I messed up. I can improve.
Which is it
never changed my love for my dad. My love for my dad is unconditional. My love for my kids is unconditional. But whether or not there is a relationship where there can be earned love based in trust and consistency and all of those pieces, that is a condition that we as adults have to set for our kids. And I'm not talking just from our parents. I'm saying from anybody, right? Now, my dad has created tons of repair. it's been great. It's led to a lot of breakthroughs. But again, this isn't about me. It's about you. And when you talked about your father, I felt the need to reflect that back through the context of how I see this conditional and unconditional love. For me, my love for my parents and my kids will always be unconditional. It's genetic. It's ingrained. That fits in the bucket of legacy love, no matter what, for me, in the way I choose to live.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the way you love me is a love I want to receive either, always. Right? And so those are the pieces that I think we need to pay attention to. As I said all of that, what jumped out for you in your lived experience and this idea of conditional versus unconditional love, as you were debating it earlier, like, where do you find yourself through this discussion?
So I think as we discuss, it's like you define it a little bit better. So I think it's not necessarily conditions, because conditions were like, hey, it feels very lever driven, or if this lever is not, it's outcomes, a set of like this. It's actually more of, hey, we have certain guiding principles that we expect boundaries. That 100%. Are, which we could get into a whole thing of boundaries. Ever since I've worked with you, I always tell people, I'm like, to me, it sounds like you just don't have any boundaries. And for you, you're putting your own spin on this, because over and over and over, you're actually breaking your own rules and really upsetting yourself without realizing it. So I think for me, in my own healing, when you and I worked together, I learned a lot about, I think when people do things, it would always cause me I was a person who, like, very easily, because trying to say this, I sound like an ass. As a intelligent person, I also have a unique level of sarcasm that is developed from a stepdad and a dad who both raised me to be a very smart assy person, where if you want to go to blows that way, I can do it, but it's not actually in a productive way. It was in a protective mechanism that would come up in order to protect me or keep me safe, or rather than just being like, well, I just have boundaries that I'm not allowing you to cross there anymore. And what I need to reflect back to you actually is that that's more of a problem that I feel like you have not focused or healed, that can be frustrating. So one of the things that we've gone into with this is, like I described, there's the, oh man, I can pull this weapon out. I can use it. I can weaponize my words and the things that I'm saying in order to protect myself. But a lot of times it was a very strong defense mechanism, which, as you and I talked and I learned more things, it's like, yeah, this is just me putting up an armor that I built up over time that protected me and kept me safe. That, as I learned, allowed me to better understand, this was more of a response to something that needed to be healed, that as I worked on it, allowed me to realize that when that would typically come from another person towards me, it was actually, and this isn't to, a lot of times when I say this, I always feel like I have to caveat, because I'm like, I'm not saying, hey, this is a you problem, you need to go fix it. I'm just sometimes trying to reflect back to be the awareness of like, hey, that sounds more of like something that and I'm more than happy to sit here and talk about it, but it's like, that sounds like more of something that is hitting somewhere for you. And it's like, I would be curious of where that's coming from and why. Yeah. And I think coming from what is considered your son or someone else, sometimes that's hard to hear. And from a generation that I think grew up very differently, which my wife and I always talk about, they went through a different time.
Completely.
There's almost this essence of like, what made them so strong was also one of their greatest weaknesses, of like, we just never admit when we're wrong. We never admit fault. We always win. We always figure it out. So it's like, you came from a generation of people who had to be super tough to overcome things, but then that created just a lack of accountability of, we're in a generation where we're all trying to discover things and heal things and figure things out to change things for the future. And our parents think that that's like, oh, you're just calling me a piece of shit parent and I was just the worst. And I'm like, actually, in doing this, it's made me more appreciative of what you did and 100%. Why. But I also just sometimes need you to say, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Can you tell me more? Can we listen? And I think a lot of times, if you're a parent who has a kid, or if you're someone who's listening to this, it's like, I really hope this lands. This is one of the things that can help repair and improve a relationship in a way that you can't even imagine. The thing that struck me when you described what you did for your dad is, for me, I want what you described, but unfortunately we are just not at a place in order for me to even allow that chance yet. Because as you said, I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to do this. The last conversation I had with my dad was, I'm not even sure of the person that I'm speaking with at this moment, because the man who worked very hard to create the man who I am, that I'm very appreciative of, that I look back on, and people are allowed to change. So I'm trying to be a little bit flexible in where that hits me. But there's just certain things where I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So because of that, it becomes a whole thing. And there's just, for me lately, events on top of events on top of events that have just led towards this. And it's like, I, growing up, had enough of this stuff for me, little short without going too long. Like, I didn't meet my dad till I was 8 years old. I was a drunken night in college. My mom is also one of my heroes, because guess what? She made one of the hardest decisions ever. She could have made a really easy decision and I wouldn't be here, but I am. And of course, I am forever grateful for her for making all of the hardest sacrifices a person could ever make. When I have to think back of the things that I went through, I'm very grateful for the person that it made me. But I'm also glad that I have the awareness and I get to be in control of what my kids' experience is like growing up. And I want that to be such a beautiful thing that they look back on and they're like, we just always had so much fun. This is what we always remember. We remember these things. We remember you being there. We remember this stuff. It's like, I get to be one of the very first ones in my family to change that. I'm literally the first person in my family to get married before having kids. I'm the first person in my family to get married before moving in together. I'm the first person, like, there are so many things in it that I realized a lot of people before me had to make sacrifices to get me here, and I'm grateful for. But in all honesty, like, the struggle for me right now is like, I think you brought something that I'm going to have to dive into, which is like, am I trying to change you? And part of me is like, I probably was like, why can't you just be this person? The one thing that I can't bend on is that I need what you said. I need radical awareness that knows when I mess something up, and then the ability to apologize and fix it. That's not there yet. So until I see that, for me, it just has to be like, this is a wall that goes up that's probably bigger than most, but it has to be.
I think it's unfair to expect of anyone that they have the ability to create awareness. That, I think, is an unfair expectation, because it does require someone to change in a different way to be able to become aware of things consistently that have been hidden patterns or unconscious behaviors for decades of their life, right? And so I'm not saying that that's an unfair expectation for you. What I'm trying to reflect back is I think the nuance in this is, and if you listen to the detail of the words that I gave, it's if you become made aware of a time that you created damage, likely unintentionally, that you will take the moment to reflect, raise your awareness to it, and step into ownership and repair. Because if an outside stimulus, which you and I can influence, and we can do it with love, right? We don't have to react. We don't have to punish them. We don't have to tell them, right? But it is a very clear, calm boundary. And in fact, in the moment that led to all of this, it was a reaction in a moment. I calmly placed my hand on his chest, on his heart. And I said, is everything okay? Can we, like, are we good? Do we need to recalibrate? Like, what's going on? And it escalated. And that's when I stopped in that moment. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to take my kids. I will talk to you later. No more discussion in that moment. And the reality of it is that wasn't the moment to bring him into a place of ownership. His armor was up. It was escalated. I've been there, and de-escalating me when I'm there is not easy. Ask my wife for listen to anything I've talked about with my anger. It's something I still struggle with. But I think that's where I would challenge you on the nuance, even in the way that you've talked about, like when you bring things to awareness from someone else. If you can learn to speak about only your experience without putting it on the other person in terms of a behavior or something that's wrong, right? Like for me, I said to my father, Dad, I and my son experience a lot of stress when you panic and freak out in these situations. I understand why you would. I know why it hits you there. I know what this does, but it's creating an issue on this side. I don't know why this happens continually or what can I do to help facilitate this better. But this is a pattern that I'm hoping we can discuss because I hope that we can find a way so that it doesn't continue. But it's also not saying, Dad, you fucked all this shit up. It's being like, hey, right? Mm-hmm. Let's work on this and know that I'm loving you through the process. We've gone way deeper on this than I thought we would. And I'm okay with it, honestly, because I am hopeful, Brandon, that this is helpful for you in a very real period in your life. But the reason I also wanted to slow down is this is critically important in our lives. And I'm going to suggest in one of your greatest areas of expertise, the importance of this work is directly connected because it is the fight or flight and the need to defend and protect, right? This is all tied to our nervous systems. And most of these interactions and moments of protection, as you described, you learned to process through, are the things that disconnect us. And so I want to shift the conversation for a minute because you did come back full circle to your mom. You also referenced your grandma, and I'm going off of memory, and it's been a few years. But if I remember correctly, didn't you grow up primarily in and around women, and that there were not as many masculine figures in your life? Okay, so could you give us a little bit of a feel for that? Because I think it's actually extremely interesting. You talked about your dad coming in at 8, but you've talked about this strong female matriarchal influence in your life. And I'd just like you to talk about some of those early years and maybe some of those initial areas of block that you started to discover as you were becoming an adult.
Yeah, I think a lot of that probably comes back. I mean, I can remember when I was super young with my grandmother, my mom's mother. We originally lived with her for a while before my stepdad and my mom ended up dating and then getting married and going through that. So it's like I had my stepdad there, but that relationship has always been different and interesting just from the standpoint of, I'm sure that's hard for him to come in and be a stepdad. And like, we now fortunately have had conversations and talked. And like, I've absolutely been like, hey, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and how much, no matter what I said or did with my actions or what I did, you always stepping up and taking care of us and providing and doing. And my stepdad injured himself. He used to be a sheriff and injured himself and had to be a stay-at-home dad. And for me, was such an interesting example of what a dad can do, because also I think we have these societal norms of how things are supposed to be done. And while sure, there may be guiding principles within that, there's no one right way. There's no perfect way in order to get there. And everybody's is a little bit different on what that journey is going to be like. So I've never looked at it. You're actually the first person to say it in the way of like having all these, all this feminine energy around me, because it's my mom has all these sisters, my grandma. It's like I was surrounded by that a lot more than I realized. My dad also always struggled with me, which in my reflection of some of the stuff that we talked about, my dad always struggled with the way that I am tied into my emotions. I've always been considered emotional. My dad would say things like, you have to remove the emotion out of it. And my brain would be like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how to function in that way. And as we've reflected just to like a little bit on some of the things that we touched on, I'm like, oh, that would make sense in how my grandparents were, how you were raised, how your mother, there's a lot of things in there where I'm like, okay, fortunately my work has allowed me to see where my dad has some of those things too.
Which gives great backwards too, doesn't it? Yeah.
It allows for a place where there are times where it's like, I feel like to explain to my wife, I'm like, you also have to understand these things though, because I'm not trying to demonize anyone in certain circumstances. We're trying to work through this ultimately for everyone in a way that works out for everyone. But also, like you said, I get to choose. And it's like, for my family, this is what we're doing. But I mean, yeah, it's a very interesting of like, met my dad on my 8th birthday, find out I have a stepmom and a stepbrother, and, start spending time with them on the weekends occasionally, having to go through this off and on, and then getting into high school and playing sports more, and that not being such a frequent thing. So maybe I would go a couple weeks through the summer. And I also, part of my journey in my life, like one of the things that changed my life was my dad and my stepmom showing up when I was in college, when I had been kicked out of my house. So my mom and I did go through my mom and my stepdad, I wanted to move out. I wanted to leave my house. I was very much like, they just always want to control me. They want to do all this. Like, we had a very rough period that my wife fortunately came in and sort of like, that there was when she came in, this allowed for a lot of things. It's been beautiful and I love it now, but it was definitely very rough for her. So at the time, I can remember, like, I was in college. It was spring break. No one is around. The campus is closed down. I'm living on whatever ramen and Pop-Tarts that I have left. And I got no food. My car has no gas. I'm playing football, so I don't have a job. So I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And I remember praying at that time, and I'm like, God, please just give me some guidance here, something. And I just kept getting this feeling. And I sent a text to my stepmom, and an hour later, I get a call from her, and she's like, hey, your dad's renting a car. He's driving out there. He's going to come get you. And like, wow. For me, that was a very crucial moment. This is also where I fall back on, like, the person that I see now is not that person, the person who just shows up. Like, you can hear that a lot in a lot of my story. We are people who show up for people. I am a person who, the thing that I was always shown is, like, when somebody really we show up, we're there, we do whatever it takes. We walk, we crawl, we run, we hike, we hitchhike, whatever it takes, we get to where we have to go. There is a underarching energy probably through a lot of my family heritage that's like, there was probably a lot of tough ass people who did a lot of stuff like that. And I'm very grateful because it makes me the person who I am. It also makes me very grateful for what I get to do. Never would I have ever think I'm going to get to sit here and have a conversation with one of my good friends to get to talk about stuff like this. But it's such an interesting journey. But now this is also, I love this because I'm just mentally taking notes of things that I would love to sit on and reflect on later. Because like my struggles when I was younger, I'm like, does that come from me just really needing a father figure that unfortunately I just feel like I didn't either let my stepdad be or that he just wasn't at that time?
And it may be both. Right. And yet I think that there's a whole lot of things that happen that we may not have an exact explanation for. Right. I think you can look back at the variables, and I think the important part is to try to pay attention to, as much as you can, the beliefs that were formed. But at the same time, some of those beliefs can also be very significantly shaded and skewed based on the perception at the time. But you did say something very deep in there as well. And I think this is an important thing, and it connects to your stepdad, but it connects in things overall in general. I've said for a long time that like the number one rule in life is to show up. Right. And then the next rule in life is like how you show up. And then it's like where you show up. And then it's with whom you show up. Right. Like, and I would say that the who is probably way on the front end of the list, but nevertheless, it's these components of it. And I identify deeply, right? Well, I mean, there's a lot of service-based entrepreneurs, people, heart-led impact makers, right? People who've dealt with shame and learned to receive love, validation, and connection through performance. It was always contingent upon what we did. We show up, right? But sometimes we can show up consistently because that's what we believe we need to do. It's what we should do. It's what we were trained to do. It's what the Browns do. It's what we do. It's our heritage, right? And yet that doesn't necessarily mean that people have always shown up for us. Now, I know you've had a lot of people show up for you, but I also know that the other has become true in many ways in your life as well. And so maybe talk about that dynamic of this kind of conditioned, heart-driven desire, almost need to show up for other people, and how you've learned to integrate that and regulate that with relationships so that you yourself don't get drained completely in the process.
Yes. So as someone who takes care of people, I mean, you nailed it. It's why it made me laugh. It's just like, yeah, the thing, it's a double-edged sword. It is something that protects and keeps me safe. It can also be a weapon against me. It is I'm only valuable based on how much money I provide, how much work I do, how much of whatever, how many things can I create, how many new whatever. Like, it's have to continue to do something to some level, to some extent, to show up in front of someone. And honestly, for me, it really probably did get to a place that was unhealthy because it's for people who fucking cares. These people don't know me. That's also been one of the most freeing things with what I do. I post shit on the internet as a chiropractor who helps people with migraines, who's not a neurologist, who pisses people off and challenges the way that they look at things. And people will get very upset with me. And that used to bother me a lot. And I'm very grateful now that it does not as much, because the thing I tell myself is, you don't know me. If my family told me, hey, we're concerned because this is changing who you are for some reason. But the people who know me, just like you said, the people who can feel where I'm coming from and that make that connection with me, I think it's radically different. I think it's always been one of my gifts. It's the thing that I think leads first, so it allows people to feel safe to open up to me. It's always been something that helps. But like I said, it can also be very dangerous. It can be, man, I'm not doing it. It's the guilt and shame cycle that we get into. That's just like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not making enough. And it comes from a very vague, what the f is enough? Like, where is that coming from? What does it even matter to? That is, I have learned I get to choose what that looks like. I get to choose what it is that I want to do. And does it make it more challenging at times? 100%, because the more that you have now that awareness, which I think when you and I worked together was just like, oh shit, the more that I have this awareness, the more that I heal these things, it's like, that makes sense. The reason that that was me is because this is what I wanted and what I needed. So then as I heal it, it's like, okay, this makes sense. And when I get into these cycles, I think what a lot of people have to realize, if you're in a spot where you're like, man, I'm really struggling, the thing that I would always push you to do is, what are you trying to run away from or escape from or unplug from? Because running into that storm is going to be the fastest way to get past whatever it is that is haunting you, whatever's weighing you, whatever you're carrying that you're not telling anyone, that's invisible, that nobody can see. You weren't designed to live that way. You weren't supposed to be that way. But all it took was one little thing, and is one little shift. And then slowly over time, that's what took us down the path that we're at. And then people wonder why someone gets addicted to alcohol or pornography or drugs or gaming or Nike shoes or whatever the thing is that you get obsessed with. And the hard part is there's not a lot of people out there that have helped us be able to even know how, where I get it. Trust me, this is why I needed Brian, because I'm like, I don't even know where the F to start or what is going on. Because usually when you're in that, you are spiraling in such a dangerous way that you're just like, can somebody make the world stop spinning, please? Because if we could just do that, I feel like I could breathe for a second.
And honestly, like sometimes that's what we need to be able to do, is just slow down to take a breath. And you've referenced it. We've talked around it. I gave it in your intro. You just mentioned it, but yes, you're a chiropractor. You're called the Migraine Doctor. And so help understand in this kind of transition from college and some of these elements that took place, like what got you on the path to become a chiropractor? And then what are the elements of your story that took you further down into the niche that you're in to focus specifically in migraines?
So this obviously always has to go back, and this is why these stories are great. I think we could probably lay out a storyline from what we've talked about so far with this. So my dad is also a chiropractor. My dad,
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah. So my dad's also a chiropractor.
Stepdad or real dad?
Real dad.
I don't think I ever knew that. That's in all the conversations you and I've had, that's like the first thing you've said today that I'm like, I didn't know that. Like that's crazy. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
So usually when I say that, people think like, remember, I didn't meet him until I was 8 years old. So I think people are like, oh, you must have grown up in this. And I'm like, sort of, but not really. And he was also where I've been too, and just the struggles of starting.
It's just a weird touch point, connecting point for me, because I'm like, that's not random. You know what I mean?
And it's part of what I always lean back into on like why I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm like, I'm 1000% doing what I was put on this earth to do, which feels great. And I love every day. But it starts with that. Like whenever I moved in with my parents and was going to church with them and working at their office and helping them, I got to, and my dad does like a very different form from what I do of just like general chiropractic with some other stuff that he had gotten into. But I still watched it change people's lives. I mean, the story that I always tell people, the one that I remember, this lady came in that was like 44 years old. And I'm talking walking in like completely hunched over in a walker at 44 years old. She can't even stand up straight and walk. And, you know, they're coming in and they're in desperate need of help. Oh my gosh, we got to do something. And it's, you know, take them back, run them through the process, get x-rays. And normally it's like, hey, at that time it's like, hey, go home, come back tomorrow. We're going to sit down and go over all this. This is kind of how we do it. And my dad's like, you know, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to take care of you today because we got to do something. Like we need as much time as we can. So gets her adjusted, sends her home and is like, you got to come back tomorrow so that we can still sit down and go over everything. And that fucking lady came walking into my dad's office the next day, standing up straight without any walker.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what the hell? Like, is somebody messing with me? And like, am I being punked here? Like, what is going on? Like, this stuff doesn't happen. And then there's moments in my life that I'll never forget. 2 times in my dad's office, I worked the front desk. I was basically like the person who orchestrated the flow of everything. And I had 2 of my dad's patients walk up to me and say, this is going to sound really weird, but I really feel like God is pressing on my heart to tell you that you're going to do this and you are going to change a lot of people's lives. And 2 separate people not knowing each other, basically saying almost the exact same thing. And just, they don't know me. Coming up and telling me these things was like a radical shift for me. I also had a lot of really bad influence in high school, being a problem child that didn't like to be told what to do. I hung out with a lot of people that spoke really negative things over me. So I was told I was dumb and lazy. So therefore I became dumb and lazy.
Yeah.
And when I started being around my dad more, all I heard was, you are so much like your dad. You are so much like your dad. And I looked at him. My dad's a very intelligent man, very smart. And I was just like, why is everyone saying this? Like, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? They're like, guy, you sound like him. And I just remember like, maybe I'm missing something here. And I remember for me, that shift from, you know, dropped out of that college, ended up going to local community college in Tulsa, started working for them. You know, I go from like a 1.6 GPA trying to play football to like a 3.3 GPA. I'm going to go into chiropractic school. I'm going to get all my prereqs that I need, like finally kind of driven to go into a certain direction. And it still was kind of going back and forth on what I wanted to do. My parents also started a coaching thing for chiropractors at that time because they had fallen out of the one that they were in. That was kind of where our sort of start of separation came a little bit. They like worked me to the bone. And we're at a rough financial time. And instead of just being honest with me and telling me that they're struggling, and so because of that, my pay is a little bit different at the time, they just stopped paying me and were like, hey, you get somewhere to live. And so that created a lot of money issues for me because I was like, oh, the work that I do is not equivalent to what I earn, and caused me to have a lot of problems that I had to work through, which I'm grateful to have the awareness. But it was like, that was a struggle for me. Around that time was also when I met my wife. We met at a CrossFit gym. And, you know, for her and I, when we started dating and became very intentional and decided like, this is my flipping person, we want to get married, we were 23 and 24, like 22 and 23 when we met. And like, we're like, our parents are going to think we're crazy. So then we're like, we're going to come up with a flipping plan. We're going to have all this laid out. We're going to put it together. And somehow we did. And our parents supported it. I got conditionally accepted into chiropractic school down here in Texas. Went to school, and while I was going through school, Dr. BJ Palmer, who was the developer of chiropractic, had a technique called upper cervical. And upper cervical is really focused around the top 2 bones in your neck, the uniqueness of those bones and why they're so different, and the work within, you know, really not just the bones, but in the nervous system that is housed inside of the system and the impact that it has on people's health. So Dr. BJ Palmer has all these research books and things that he wrote about changing people's lives. People would travel to come see him. And for me, I was like, I need that tool in my tool belt. That sounds like a really cool tool. I want to have it. And some of my mentors, I said, hey, if I wanted to learn this, where would I go? And they were like, you should go to Dr. Andy Roberts and Dr. Sean Dill, which you know. And so I was like, cool. At the time I reached out to them and they were like, hey, yeah, we have this program called TATS. It's called the Art of the Specific. we do modules. You have to come like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, basically, to like Chicago or wherever they're at. And I was like, if you know anything about me, that shit ain't going to work for me. So I have a lot of like, I'm definitely always willing to ask and come up with a plan that strategically makes more sense. And I said, if I got a group of people together, would you be willing to do it in like an intensive and we could do it all in one weekend? And they said, there's another kid that we're talking to. You two should talk. And if y'all can fill a room, we will come down there and do it. Well, me and another guy, Dave, basically got 50 people together in a tiny room in a hotel, jammed in there. And we got Andy and Sean to come down and teach us. And I was about halfway through school. I had just enough knowledge to kind of know what was going on. But my brain was like, I'm going to do what my dad does. I'm going to go back. This is what it looks like. And they came in. Sean dropped a fucking atomic bomb on my chiropractic house. And I was like, fuck. Like, the thing is I had a lot of questions. How do you know when someone needs to be adjusted, and how do you know when they don't? How do you know your adjustment worked? How do you know where someone needs to be adjusted? And they were able to answer a lot of those questions for me in a way that made sense, and in a way that I was like, people are always worried about the usage of chiropractic and how many people go. And I'm like, if we did it this way, this would be a way that would change the perspective and change things. This could change some lives. But I also wrestled because I said, how in the fuck do you do this in an office? My dad's office was complete opposite. I'm like, you're resting people after they get adjusted and doing all this. I'm like, you can't run a business.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to actually make a business run that way. So decided to, after that, that was a level 1. Then the next one I went to, they actually did a level 1 and level 2 intensive together. So I was their first intensive and their first co-intensive of doing both, and kind of switching rooms and coaching.
I knew you had a long relationship with them. I didn't realize you were like right there at the beginning.
Yeah. So cool. I've been there before BDC, which now, Adaptopreneur and all the things that they're doing. Like, I've been there a long time, and in doing that, like, just finally made the decision of like, okay, I remember I went to my first level 2, and the first section was Sean did business, and he broke it down in a way that I was like, you can do this and be successful. Because for me, I'm like, I'm not going to do this if I can't be successful. Like, I want to help people, but I also need this to support my lifestyle. And so I was like, all right, I remember messaging Andy. Like, Andy's the reason I have my tattoo here of the mediocre or master, which was always Andy's thing to us, is like, basically, are you going to bullshit this, or are you going to do it for real? So are you going to be mediocre at this, or are you going to be a master? And then the music note between the two was, Andy always said that the beauty of music is the music is in between the notes. If all I did was slam the keys, I don't ever actually get to hear the piano. I don't get to hear anything. Yep. We carry that same principle in the adjustments. It's not actually the power of the adjustment. It's all the cool shit that your body does in between those. That's actually where the really radical and cool stuff happens. So he unfortunately is passed, which is again why I have this. But, you know, Andy was always there. I could always message him. He would always answer my questions. It's one of those where it's like, I look back and I'm like, man, this is getting ready to be me soon. I'm going to have to be one of those people that's guiding and that's, you know, mentoring these people. But that was, you know, sort of I'm going to go this route. My parents were also at the time like, hey, are you going to come back? We're thinking about like, if we open up a second office, you run it. And I was like, I don't know if that's what I want to do anymore. So that for us created a little bit of a divide at that moment. Cause for my dad, that was a struggle. Like, oh, my son's following in my footsteps. Now all of a sudden my son wants to go do something completely and radically different, which I know is tough at first. And eventually we came back around. My mom sort of smoothed all that over of just like, hey, like, we don't care. This is what we want. We want a relationship with you guys. And I was like, okay, like, I get that. That's what we want too. I would just love for you guys to support me in what it is that I want to do. This is going to be hard enough as it is. And it was definitely to start with. So I fell into that. And, you know, one of the first people I get to take care of, obviously, as I'm learning this, is my wife. And my wife has always struggled with migraines. She was a cheerleader. She's had a lot of head injuries. She was a base. She's always catching people and having head injuries. And, you know, she'll tell you, she was the person, like, I always thought I was going to be the person that you shake my purse and it, you know, I have every pill in there that you can imagine because I'm going to have to live this way. Because that's what every doctor's told me. Every place that we've gone, nobody's been able to figure this out. she hadn't had a migraine in 15 years. She's like headaches occasionally, sure, but she hasn't had that ever since. So for me, that was the cool first thing to experience, because I know what it's like for people with their spouse when their spouse is sick and all you want to do is take their pain away, but you can't. So I always tell people, I'm like, I didn't know anything about what they experienced until the whole, we can get into, like we talked about, that was my first experience of migraines, but I'm like, I'm the spouse, I'm the supporter. I know what that person goes through. So basically decide this is what I'm going to do, join the specific chiropractic center. So I have to go through a whole vetting process at the time. They basically slammed the door in my face and were like, hey, so Sean and Lacey were not in control of the vetting process. There were other docs that were like, hey, we met with this guy, we like him, but some of his answers are kind of, we don't know. So I basically knocked at the door. They were like, talk to me for a second. Then they slammed the door in my face. And then I basically just stood there and was like, I'm not going anywhere until you let me in here. So they had a team meeting, I guess, and discussed that the process of bringing people in was going to change. And they were like, oh, and we also have these 2 new people that were joining. And one of them was me. So
what I appreciate about a lot of the intricacies of your story, we've joked before about how you and I both have the gift of gab, and we can like take one question and run for like 15 minutes. And so I make joke at that because you're one of the few people that I interview that can just like keep going. And it's like, well, where do I want to jump in? I say that with love because you give a lot of context and layers as well. And so I appreciate being able to kind of hear the way that it all progresses. You talk about a lot of grit and resiliency through your story, even though you don't call it to attention. You know, we used to teach this to new business partners of mine in my old world, but it's like when you don't have resources, learn to be resourceful. Right. And it's a very, very big thing that I have lived my whole life by, because I've kind of bootstrapped everything I've ever done. And yet I've also been the person who shows up until I get entry, if it's something that I want. You talked about that in a couple of experiences with Sean, right? Like you made the whole freaking first intensive happen. You have this go away. And then that's even how you get into their whole franchise model to begin with. Where did you learn that level of tenacity?
From my parents.
Which ones? All of them?
All of them. So this is where we talked about like my current issue of my dad is not quite knowing the person, because the person that he was is the person who made me. And I think there was always a not necessarily making me do it, because at times there was, but it was like I got to watch people who just worked hard. They were willing to work. It didn't matter what it was, whether it is a project at the house, whether it is working on a thing, whether it's at the business or setting something up. It's like we had an underlining thing of just like, we're not afraid to do work. And my mom, I think always, I kind of have this whole thing with her, and I've talked to her of like, I would love to have times where I get to sit down with her and even like bring her on something with me and let people kind of experience her if she's open to that. Cause she's very much like, this is probably not what she would ever have expected for me to be, this, online personality that does stuff like this. But she also might have, because I was the kid who always talked in class. So it is definitely where she's like, I could have seen it.
You were the one that always got talked to every parent teacher conference about being the talker and interrupter, huh?
Correct.
Yeah, me too.
And now I have those too. So
I talk for a living now though. So I got them, huh?
Yeah. Suck it. Yeah. Guess who talks for a living now? That's my favorite. And I have 2 of those too right now, and probably a 3rd one on the way. Like,
I know.
I get that. So it makes me very protective of them, of like my teachers. I'm like, as long as they're being respectful, that's fine. If it starts to come from a place where they're not, then you need to let me know.
I gotta pause and ask you though this, because this is like a serious like dad to dad thing. And I just said this the other night at a Father's Day dinner that I was speaking at. My son doesn't ever shut up. Now, I've been described the same way. I'm loud. I talk a lot. I'm best in bite-sized pieces for most people, right? Like, I've learned how to regulate over the years, but being a dad has also been one of the most clarifying, challenging, reflecting points in my life. And I'm not proud to say this, but it's true, and it's likely because of all the places I was criticized. I know I am that. I know that I struggled with that. And it's still something that if I'm not aligned and careful can drive me fucking nuts about my son. And I love him to pieces and would protect him through the roof. I'm curious your experience of those same types of dynamics, because I am unbelievably patient with my kids in so many ways. And when I say he drives me fucking crazy, I want to be really clear here. Like, that is an extreme way of me expressing, like, but sometimes it's like, dude, oh my gosh. And it makes me feel like, oh yeah, that's probably how people felt with me. I'm curious though, like, what's been your experience of that as a father, man?
I can very much relate to that. It, like I said, it also makes me very protective. I would say for you, like, that's probably where that comes from. I think as we grew up and whatever was put on us or whatever was said about us, it almost comes out in that way where you're like, God, it drives me fucking crazy. But it also comes from a place of like, because I love you and I don't want you to go through the bullshit that I had to go through because I was the kid who talked 100%. Too much.
That's exactly. So that's exactly where I come from. You nailed it. That's yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I knew that. But you said it perfectly so that it clarified for everyone else.
Yeah. You're just like, it's not like a geez kid. And it's like, golly, how could Brian be so callous? It's like, no, it's actually because I love him. And like, please, my ultimate thing is to protect you. Like, as fathers, that's what we want to do. You're like, I'm the protector. I will fuck anyone up easily without even thinking twice about it. And they're like, no doubt. You would do that? And I go, 100% without even thinking
hesitation.
About it. Yeah.
Zero hesitation.
Yeah. There's like a video that goes around on the internet that's like, oh, would you kill for your kid? And it's these moms and like, would I kill? And then I love, because it always cuts to someone and they're like literally shoveling the ground and they're like, oh, it's already done. Like, consider it done. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
So 100%, because my oldest daughter is very much that. And to be truthful, my second, who I always call she's the female miniature version of me. They're both that way. Everyone in our damn family talks. I'm like, I'm with our son that's coming. I'm like, I'm going to be interested to find out if he's just the quiet one. That's just like, he's like, I just sit here and let everybody else talk because they're all going to talk. But I mean, I think it would drive people crazy probably to hang out with our family, but we fucking love it. Like, that's who we are. I think my thing is like, I get, and like I told you, my guiding principle is like, as long as it's from a place of respect, like if she's being disrespectful because she's a kid, she doesn't know yet. So she's learning. So if it comes from a place where she's being disrespectful and just blatantly not listening,
completely agree.
That's a problem. But you need to understand she doesn't know any different because this is how we interact with everyone. That child also, my wife was still working when she was born, and she would come to the office with me, and all she's ever known is hanging out with people and watching dad talk to people. And she very much has always had the gift of being best friends with everyone. Yeah. She's like
that's my kids. They're magnets for people. Yes. It's insane.
And everyone knows her. Everyone's like, oh, there's Remy. Like, everybody knows that. So I'm mostly, from my standpoint, I'm just protective of it because I know for me, that was part of and it still is. And even still, my wife would just be like, oh, if you ask him that, my wife will like warn people, whatever can of worms here you're about to open up, just be prepared, because it's not a 5-minute dissertation. It's a 50-minute dissertation, and you might not get anything in, sort of like you joked, which I have.
Others might call it a filibuster. I don't know. I'm just saying. Listen,
we always joke that, and it has never happened, but it's like somebody in our family is probably ended up being a lawyer. Like, you want us to talk and argue? We would do that. None of us did it, but it's like, man, if you want me to do that, I'll do it.
We're in the same boat. I truly appreciate even where we've been able to take our conversation today. So because time freezes for me in some cases, your kids also froze in age for me as to the time that we worked together, which I don't even remember when that was. It's, I don't know, 4 years ago, something like that. How old are your kids now? And I know you're expecting another.
Yeah. So Remy is 7. She'll be 8 in November. And then Elle is 3. She'll be 4 in August.
Okay. And so Remy would have been the one that you and I interacted with or spoke the most about. Which one of them looks just like you?
The other one. So Elle was probably like around 1, I think, when we worked together.
Elle was okay. So Elle's like your little miniature me, literally, in even the way you look, right?
A little bit more, yes.
Okay. Well, your daughters are both absolutely adorable.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how
know.
from that face they became adorable,
Bro,
but that
right?
face put in little girl form
My
was
wife.
like, was great.
No, they're beautiful.
What would you say has been the greatest lesson that you have had since becoming a father?
Oh, greatest, goodness gracious. So many, the person that they help you to become, the way that they actually, without realizing it, show you what, going back all the way to the beginning of this, is like what love really is. Yeah. The first time that your child looks at you and is like, I love you. And guess what? There's nothing that is making them say that. There's nothing. They mean that. You are their world. And for me, that is the most beautiful and rewarding thing. It is one of the things for me where I will work hella fucking hard, but I will also always make time to show up for their thing and to be there. Because for me, one of the most important things, you could take everything away from me. You could, bankrupt my business. You could turn the Migraine Doc into whatever. You could take all this stuff away and I could figure all that stuff out. But my family, I couldn't. I can't. The way that they're protective of me, that they support me, that they help me in ways that they don't even know, has been, and I love this because you said this with your son, and it's like the way they also aggravate the shit out of me incessantly, sometimes nonstop, or goodness gracious, they're wearing mom out and I have to go save mom so that mom can have a moment too. But I think they give you lessons that you can reflect back on because they don't have any of the bullshit that you've gone through. They've been fortunate enough to not. And so they can be a great way to show you certain things that you didn't even know that you needed. It's like, for me, it gave me the perspective to then look at my parents and then be like, oh man, and to have really cool conversations, like especially with my mom, of just like, I want you to know how much I appreciate you and how much I love you and how much, I just want to thank you. Like I do that to my mom all the time. I'm like, Mom, I know you've had the hardest fucking life because of what you chose to do. And I'm so grateful for it. And later on in your life, I'm going to spoil the shit out of you because you deserve it.
Yeah, I love that. And the full circle. As a father of a daughter, because I also know that your girls melt you. I know you have a boy on the way too, which congratulations, you're going to get to round it out. And they are totally different experiences, which I'm sure everybody's told you, but it's fun. But as a father of a daughter, I'm going to totally call this out right now. And though I don't listen to this music normally, I have fallen in love with this one album because of my daughter. And it was because of a song that I heard that she didn't even know who the artist was when it took place. Have you listened to the song First Man by Camila Cabello?
No.
I'm not shitting you, dude. Like, I can't remember how it came into my world, but somebody sent me the song. This was maybe 4 years ago. And I clicked on it to listen to it. And I'm sitting on an airplane. I'm getting ready to leave. And I start listening to the song. I shit you not. It hit me in a really unique way. And I talk often about how I conditioned tears out of my world a long time ago. I literally was bawling on the plane, listening to this song, thinking about the relationship with my daughter. And it's basically like, you're the first man that ever loved me. Right. And it just so my daughter and I still listen to that song often together, and she calls it the daddy daughter song. And so I wanted to share that with you because if you had not heard the song, and you may listen to it and be like, I don't know what Bogert's talking about. This song sucks. I don't know. But for me, it hit me like right between the heart, right in between the ribs. It cut me deep and I lost it. So I just thought I'd share that with you to go listen to, because I think you'll feel it as strongly as I did.
So I'm going to go listen to that one. And I want you to go listen to the Post Malone one if you have not listened to that.
Well, what Post Malone one? You didn't give me a specific on that one.
I gotta give you
the Post Malone song that narrows it down, Brandon. Thank you.
Well, I'm
kidding. I know you were probably inferring something about a daughter song or something, but
yeah. So Post Malone had a daughter, and one of the songs he wrote for her, I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look at the title and I'll let you know, but it did the same thing to me because I listened to it.
It's me, dude. I'll listen to it.
And the chorus literally goes, it's like a wedding day song. And he goes, she might be wearing she might be wearing white, but her first dress, it was pink. She might be your little girl, but to me, she's my everything. And I cried so.
I'll lose it, man.
Oh, I still cannot listen to that whole song because of the thing that it hits me. Here's what's interesting. I love how my brain works, and it just takes me back to random memories. So I can remember one night. So my wife and I typically have date nights on Fridays because COVID sort of made that into like it was frustrating to not be able to go. And so we just determined like our rule is wherever we are, that is where the date is when it's date night.
Cool.
And so that just became an at-home thing on Friday. And sometimes we sit there and we just laugh. Like we never know what it's going to be. A lot of times it's like watching a movie, just being together, eating, like, and making it really fun. But sometimes it's like, you just never know where it's going to go. And there was like this little edit that she made on like a TikTok video, and it was with her and Elle, and it was like the video keeps going and then it grabs a snapshot and it makes like a gray photo of it, and then it keeps grabbing and it's almost like capturing these little moments.
Yeah.
And we start talking about it and I start crying uncontrollably, and we're just sitting there and she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I literally just wish we could freeze time right now. Like it gives me the awareness to have gratitude, because it's like that. Unfortunately, all the moments are fleeting, and she may not remember some of those, but I damn sure will. And I just remember I'm like laying back on the couch. I'm in my, we joke in our uniform. I have like my sweatpants and my shirt that I'm wearing. And I just remember tears streaming down my face. And I'm just like, I just wish we could literally hit the pause button. Like, I just love everything about this phase where we're at. And I know all the phases coming. There's going to be the ups and downs of all of them, and we're going to love them too. Oh, but man, we'll just go back to when you're someone who, like me, who tries to be that tapped into those things. Oh man, does it make me, it hits me in.
Understand. And yet I also want to remind you that though it doesn't ever replicate it, pictures are a moment frozen in time. And that's part of the reason that I've leaned into photography in the way that I have, because it's been a really cool way to just document stuff outside of just, having stuff on my iPhone. You had a really big shift a couple of years ago. I mean, you literally had emergency brain surgery. You could have died, almost died. It did save your life. And this was after our work together. And though I've heard the high level of it, it's still relatively recent, and there's still elements that you're learning, growing, and getting perspective through. And first, I'm happy that you're here. And so I say that first and foremost. But second, why don't you give us a little bit of insight into what happened? How did you identify it? And what was that kind of process of healing and recovery like for you? Especially having been the guy that heals everybody else all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of the roughest times in my life of just being sick and not feeling great. This started probably, so in October, so I had my surgery on Halloween 2 years ago. So this Halloween will be 2 years. And it all started around September, like end of August, beginning of September. And I've had a history of having ear infections. I had them when I was younger. I would get them in rare occasions. And I had a really bad one that was really bugging me, and it just wasn't getting any better. And a lot of the way that I work, and listen, you can do what you want to do. The way that I work is I tend to let my body kind of figure it out, try to go a little bit more natural route. And it's like, hey, if it gets to a point, then we'll do whatever we have to do. So throughout August, it's just like, it's bugging me. And I'm just like, it'll get better. They typically do. Give it time. It'll start to drain. It'll clear out. We'll be fine. Retroactively looking back, I didn't realize this while I was sick. One of the things that we had done, which I'll tell people here, don't get those fucking cameras for your ear to go looking in there for bullshit, because they could cause problems. So we had one of those little camera things that you can like look in your ear and hook it up to your computer, and you can kind of see what's going on. And it was
one of the self cameras. Got it. Okay.
And it was like, is there something going on in there? And one of the things it had was like this little plasticky hook thing to like pull wax out. Well, I'm pretty sure I perforated somewhere inside of my ear whenever I did that.
Oh, no.
And I think the bacteria, that was how it got in. So basically, this whole journey of trying to figure this out started. So on September 1st at like whatever in the morning, my wife woke up to me having a seizure in bed. My guess is that is when the bacteria from my ear got into my brain and caused me to have a seizure, because that's the only one I've had. I didn't have any after. I came to on my bedroom floor with two big ass firefighters picking me up, and my bedroom floor goes straight to my front door. I can't talk yet, but I'm taking everything in, and I can see the blue and red lights flashing on my front porch, and I think I'm being arrested. And everything on my face is like, babe, why are you letting them take me? What did I do? Like, what is going on? Like, whatever happened, this is like worst nightmare shit of just like, did you do something in your sleep that you don't remember? Like, what the hell is going on? And she's just telling me like, hey, you're going to be okay. It's fine. And fortunately, one of my really good friends, Ryan, he's a medical doctor. Haven had to stay home with the girls. Fortunately, they did not wake up, but he rode in the ambulance with me to Baylor. They did a CT and an MRI. Everything came back clear. I had been so sick, was very dehydrated. They literally gave me 2 bags of IV fluid. She gave me one, and she was like, you suck that down fast. And I was like, yeah, is there any way I could get another one before I leave? And she was like, hey, we want to do a spinal tap. And I have a lot of migraine patients who get them, and they don't describe them as very fun. So I refused that. I was like, I don't want to get that. And she was like, okay. So they sent me home, but I was still not feeling great at home, laying in bed. Went to my IV place to see if they would give me an IV. I tried to go get like a high dose vitamin C IV to see if that would help. We had to basically lie to them that no, I did not just have a seizure 2 days ago. And yes, you can still give me an IV without worrying about being sued or something for like, just give me the IV. I need it. So took me to another hospital because I was still miserable downtown, and I'm being a pain in the ass as I do sometimes. And we're sitting in the lobby, and my wife's like, if you'll just let them do the spinal tap, they'll get us in a room. Like, you just need to please. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. No. So eventually I'm like, fine, F it, let them do it. Apparently I was so dehydrated, they had a hard time even getting enough fluid. They did that while I was there. They tested my heart, my liver. They're taking blood from me constantly. Did a scan of everything that you can imagine, trying to look for anything. And they're like, we feel like there's like a bacterial infection that's going on. We're going to put you on this antibiotic. We're going to send you home. So send me home. I'm on an antibiotic. I'm like starting to feel a little bit better, but was just a lot of things that should have been signs of like something was wrong. So really, I mean, I don't even know how I functioned and kept the business going. Fortunately, I had Dr. Sarah with me at the time who was taking care of things and helping. But, you know, I'm trying to do as best I can, but also like not really wanting to do stuff, which for me as a dad was hard. You know, we would try to go do something. Let's go get pumpkins. Let's go whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, but can we go back home? Can I just I just didn't want to do things. I was not feeling great. I lost like 20 pounds over the next couple months, like just because I wasn't hungry. I couldn't eat. My jaw started to be like very tense and tight on this left side. I started getting really bad migraines, ear pain, like couldn't sleep. I had this like little rice bag that you could throw in the microwave that I would literally, so that my wife would sleep, I would get up, I would go throw it in the microwave. I would heat it up and lay on it. And while it was warm, it was like the only 20, 30 minutes of sleep I could get.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just started to progress. We, you know, finally ended up, my wife's like, I'm going to take you to an urgent care so they can at least do something. Like, you know, I'm doing research. I'm like, maybe I have a sinus infection. Migraines can sometimes come from that. So we go to an urgent care. We tell the lady what's going on. And she's like, well, you don't have a sinus infection. She's like, but you definitely have an ear infection. So we're going to put you on a steroid and an antibiotic. Well, as soon as I took that, I can send you the picture. The side of my head over here swelled up and my ear started leaking out like waxy, like my ear was just leaking constantly. Like I would sit there talking to people and I would have like a Kleenex in my hand so it's not draining. In the morning, I would sleep on that side. It would be all over my pillow. Like all crazy stuff that we should have been like, something is going on here.
Yeah. Ears leaking is not a normal thing.
Yeah. Ears leaking is not a normal thing.
But you're tough, Brandon. You're tough.
Sure. Yeah. I got to the point where I was not tough.
Because at some point you have to listen.
Yes. So I remember there's a couple events that happen that like stick out throughout the process. So obviously not feeling great, maybe eating once a day. I could maybe work out once a week and I would be sore and I'm talking like barely doing anything. And fortunately, like one of the things I'll talk about with my recovery is like Sarah was taking care of me during that time. I was still getting upper cervical adjustments. I was still trying to do the stuff that I do to help hopefully support my body, but I had some major shit that was going on. The two big things that I remember was I started losing my central visual field, my like upper central visual field in my right eye, which goes over to the left side of your head, which is where my little mass of bacteria was basically growing. And I also one time I had a patient who had flown into town to come see me. I was coming up to the office. I was walking down the hallway and my left leg just gave out on me. I mean, I was walking normally and all of a sudden just complete lack of function in my leg. I hit the ground and I was like, the hell just happened? Nobody saw it. Nobody was around. Take a second, get back up. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I'm just feeling worse and worse. I love telling this story because the sequence of events is classically only a way it could go for a parent. So the Friday before my surgery, we have to take Remy to urgent care because she was pretending that she had AirPods and she put rocks in her ear and one of them got stuck. So we had to take her to an urgent care. And she probably scared the shit out of every kid in there because she freaked out while the lady was trying to get it out. And as soon as the lady got it out, she was fine. Then the next day, my wife was going to a John Mayer concert with a friend of hers. And she's like, are you going to be okay? I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. Like, I'm going to be good. Go do this. That Sunday, I remember we didn't go to church because I was not feeling great. We watched the Dallas Cowboys game and we had chili because it was the last meal I ate basically until Wednesday. So I remember like those things stick out to me. Then Monday morning, I wake up basically trying to vomit my guts out with nothing coming out, feeling really sick and lethargic and laid in bed all day. My wife is like, her parents came to check on me. I barely remember any of it. I was in bed all day. Was like, hey, you got to reach out to my patients. You got to like take care of this. Like I can barely function. And in my brain, I'm like, I really got myself super sick. I need to rest. The next morning, worse. Still trying to throw up. Now I'm breaking out in sweats. And fortunately, it was Halloween. It was on a Tuesday. And my friends, so we had friends fortunately later that watched the girls for us. And took them trick-or-treating. So my daughters don't even really know anything about this. Like Remy's just almost old enough where like I want to share the story with her and talk to her about it. But fortunately, they both go to school on Tuesday. So Remy was already in school. She was in kindergarten, I believe. And Elle went to like a Mother's Day out program on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Haven gets up, takes Remy to school, comes back, gets Elle ready, takes her to school, comes back. And she's like, what do we do? And I was like, something's clearly wrong. You have to take me to the hospital. And one of the things I'm grateful for is like my wife is very intuitive at times. And she's just like, I'm going to take you back to the place where they did your CT and your MRI. You're on file there. Like that's where we're going to go. It's in Plano. And I was like, I can barely function. I'm like, wherever you're taking me, lady, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So she calls my in-laws. They beat us there because I literally can't function. Like Haven has to bring me my shorts and help me put them on. She has to help me put my shoes on. I'm like, I need some water because I'm still like dry heaving, but nothing coming out. And I was like, you gotta give me that. And what's funny is I can remember the memory that sticks out to me is how blue the sky was that day. I just remember laying back and I mean, listen, it was one of those situations like it was basically 50-50 according to my surgeon, basically. And that is one of the memories that sticks out to me is I'm cruising my wife's car and I have the seat leaned back with the window down because the fresh air feels good. And I remember just looking up at the sky and I'm like, at least the sky is beautiful. I'm like, man, I feel like shit, but the sky really is beautiful right now. Like that's a beautiful shade of blue. And we pull up to the hospital. My like almost 70-year-old mother-in-law is holding me up to walk me in, sits me down in the lobby and gives me one of those like bags that you can like, that I'm dry heaving in. And they're checking me in. And I looked to my mother-in-law and I said, you're gonna have to tell them to get me a wheelchair. I cannot walk. I won't be able to walk back. Like they're gonna have to wheel me back there. So wheel me back. The poor nurse looks at my big ass and is like, can you get yourself in the bed? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Cause she's like, I'm not dragging you up there. I'll hurt myself. So I remember getting up there. This is like the last memory that I have, getting up there, laying back. And I'm like, hey, I'm at the hospital. This is now y'all's job. This is what y'all do. I feel like I need to rest. I'm going to sleep. That's not what happened. I was still somewhat awake. My wife said they were asking me questions to figure out where I was cognitively. And I was getting frustrated that they wouldn't help me answer them. Like, do you know what year it is? And I'm like looking around the room, like, guys, help me out here. And they're like, we can't help you. Like, do you know who the president is? Do you know, like, I can't do any of that. So Haven has to leave and go get my girls from school. And I guess my heart rate kept dropping down. And so finally they're like, hey, we're going to take him back to get a CT on him, just full body to see what's going on. They bring me out. My father-in-law calls Haven and he's like, hey, they found something in his brain. So basically the bacteria from my ear infection ate a hole through my skull, got into my brain, and was known for making a lot of pus. So they wouldn't label it as a tumor, but I basically had a potato-sized mass of pus in my head that was growing and growing. The reason I say we went to the right place was Dr. Denning, who did my surgery, is literally one of the top 2 neurosurgeons in Dallas. And he was already at the hospital doing another surgery on someone else that had been scheduled. And they got the call back from me. And he was like, yep, we got the call back. They told me what was going on. We knew what was up. He is I love this man because he cares in a way that a lot of doctors don't. He was like, I know about your wife, your kids, the whole situation. Like it's not just like, it's another guy. Let me cut this dude's head open and see what I can do. Like that dude cares a lot and his team cares a lot. When I went and did my 2-week follow-up, they were like, oh shit, we can't wait to see this dude and see how he's doing. The way I describe it is like, I fell asleep and then, I had a lot of people afterwards that was like, oh my gosh, you're a miracle. Like it's a miracle. You're such a blessing. And like a lot of times when you hear those stories, it's like, man, I went to heaven and it was like, God was like, it's not your time. And we high-fived and then he sent me back. It was like, I didn't have any of that. I felt trapped in my body a little bit. And I was just like, I remember like having this awareness. It was almost like I've never described it this way before, but the best I could describe it is like a baby in a womb. Like I felt like that inside of my own body. Like it was me inside of here. And I just remember like being kind of moved around. And then I remember being really cold. And I was like, God, I'm really cold. Like, why do they have this room so cold? And I'm like, I was probably back in surgery at that point. Mm-hmm. I love to jump around in this story because it's one of my favorite parts to just talk about how the surgery went because I'm a flipping nerd. And when I did my 2-week follow-up, I'm like, can you explain to me what you do? Because I was like, do you pull the muscle out of the way? And he's like, no, we cut through everything. So if I can, and I've got them, and if you want to add anything, like I'll post them up after we put some of these clips out. Yeah. I got a picture of like, so basically they shaved the side of my head. They cut, like, you can barely see now. He did a great job with like, when my hair's cut, you can see it better, but I have like this like question mark. Basically they shave it down, cut through the skin, lay that down, cut through the muscle, lay that down. He was like, that was when we saw this hole that was in your skull. So he's like, we assume that's where the bacteria had just eaten its way through. And I'm like, wow. Okay. He's like, then we cut through the bone. And then we open everything up. And then he was like, based on your CT, we're looking at it and looking for the folds. And he said, basically, once they created space for it and they were looking, he said the mass just popped out. Like as soon as they created a space for it to go, it popped out. But the part that still trips me out every time I tell this story, my brain immediately shrunk right back down to normal size.
Imagine.
Immediately. Because if it didn't, they would have had to leave my head open and they would have had to wait. Thing.
Yeah.
But I immediately, boom. And the way he described it was like, that doesn't always happen, but it was incredible to watch. He was like, just immediately. And he was like, closed you back up.
Did they plate over the hole in the bone or is it not a concern? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so I have these like 3 little metal, I call them like snowflakes is kind of what they look like on an x-ray.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, they're just like, okay.
And I have 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom, and they basically just go on both sides and they hold it in place essentially.
Dude, that's a wild story. And here's the thing, people face different moments in their life that really are inflection points, right? And though my story is not my transformation story, it's not the one that defined me, right? There's obviously a lot that came from it, a lot of perspective that came from it, a lot of lessons that come from it. And as we kind of come towards the tail end of this interview and conversation for today, which I know you and I could probably talk for 4 more hours, the question would become, how did this experience in your adult life shift your perspective on anything or everything?
The easy answer is everything, because when shit like that happens, you learn that the stuff that pisses you off and rattles you and does that doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't. So Dr. Denning told me he had a similar surgery on another guy, a guy that had a procedure done on his nose. They had basically created a hole in his skull. That was how the bacteria got in. By the time they found it, they metaflighted this guy. Dr. Denning went in to try to do this. It was too late. That guy didn't make it. So he's done this surgery like this twice. One person, me, made it. One person did not. The day that he told me that, I remember talking to my mom, and I was like, because for me, it was no different. I felt no different. I woke up the next day. It was the best I'd ever felt. I could hear out of my ear. I had no pressure in my head. That Wednesday was the best I had felt in months. And I was like, holy shit, I'm good. Cool. Can I go home? Obviously not. But I was like, I feel great. Cool. And for me in that moment, because I think that was one of those things of like, it would have been easy to just be like, yeah, I had brain surgery. It's whatever. It's like, no, dude, we were very, very close to, I'm not around for my wife anymore. I'm not the person who's raising my kids anymore. And would God have a plan and hopefully handle that and take care of it? Yes, I believe so. But fortunately, he chose that I would get to do that and that my time wasn't done and that I clearly have some sort of purpose. So for me, it's like, well, I must have some reason that I'm here, which I know a lot of people can kind of wrestle with and struggle of like, what is my life's purpose? What am I supposed to be here to do? But the example I always give is a really almost like cheesy and simple one, but it just gives me the ability to go, okay, it's a little thing, but it's like, what does it matter? Like, what does that matter? There's stuff that we choose to really let affect us that in a week, you're not even going to fucking remember. In 2 days, you might not even remember. But at that moment, you let it have such a visceral impact on you that's like, so what? So I can remember it was like a few weeks after I went in the morning to go get coffee for us. And I took my wife's car and I parked it and I went in and got the coffee and I came back out and the battery on the car died. This was probably like right before Thanksgiving. And that would normally just be very frustrating, to be honest. But I was like, I think we'll figure this out. So I was like, I looked up, do we have tow service or like, do we have that covered on anything? Cause I can get it towed. We could do this. And we didn't have any. And I called a place and they told me how much it was going to cost. And like, could I have spent the money? Sure. But I just had this feeling and I was like, hey, I'm going to go inside and ask one. Like I go to this coffee shop all the time. Hey, does anybody have like they could just come jump? Yeah. So you just come, like, I know I'm on the main street. It's a one way. Like, it's not convenient where I'm parked in these like 3 little parallel spots. But one of the guys goes, yeah, no problem. Pulls around, jumps me. I call Haven and let her know the situation. And she's like, hey, we just got that battery. And I'm like, you're right. And she goes, I have the receipt in the glove compartment. Pull the receipt out, go back to the Napa place that is right by our house, take it in. It's covered. They give me a new one. I walk it out there. They give me some tools. I change it out. I go home. And part of me is like, yeah, it's no big deal, right? Well, who's to say that when we drove that car a week later for Thanksgiving to go see family, that something else wouldn't have happened? And so it happened to me in a situation that I was able to handle and correct
and you had
it.
the space and time and capacity to address it without causing too much other disruption, right? In a major way.
And so
those are those hidden blessings though.
Yeah.
Right. And I love the nuance of you being able to call attention to just that, which is like, yeah, it saved us from the potential of breaking down with the girls on the side of the road when we were going to see family for Thanksgiving or right. Like there are things that you're right. What does it matter? Right. But yet at the same time, what I want to highlight is that you also had the courage and conviction to ask for help. And you had somebody who was generous and willing to help you in that moment. Mm-hmm. Right. Like I'm not going to go too far on this, but there was a situation. I still text with this guy. There was a situation with my Jeep where long story, I've got an older Jeep and 8 years I owned it. The fuel injection was a disaster. It was not reliable. It was not consistent. It would overheat. I couldn't drive it all the time, but I love driving it. So I would like plan to break down on the side of the road and be okay. Well, it was a day I hadn't planned to do this. I didn't have anybody around. I could have panicked. I could have freaked out. There was a guy who saw me struggling and he followed me into the parking lot. I didn't even have to ask. He follows me and he's like, hey, I saw you were having some troubles. Like, what's going on? Can I help? And I said, I don't know yet. I need to figure out what's going on real fast, but maybe. Can you hang out for just 2 minutes so I can determine? He goes, do you need a tow? Do you need something? Yeah, I think so, but can you give me just 2 minutes? He literally rope towed me like 5 miles back to my house. Like, it was not on his way. It was complete kindness. Guy was unbelievable. Just like, didn't even skip a beat. Just happy as could be. So blessed. So happy to do it. And it's moments like that that remind me of the choice that the woman made when she saved my life, and how one choice in a single moment can change our own lives or the trajectory of others. And we ask, what does it really matter? But yet what really mattered in that moment.
Yep.
And that's what's really fucking beautiful about the way you told that story in particular. And I'm grateful that you did. Here's the thing, brother. Again, I don't mean to get too deep and too crazy on this, but I've always known that you were here on this planet for a reason. And I don't say that just because of the normal like nuance of like, oh yeah, blah, 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 cliche. Like, yeah, everybody has, yes, I do believe everybody has a purpose, but you have a bigger one. And it was instant and obvious and known to me. And whether it's through your work or whether it's through your kids or other components, like, you are someone that is sought out globally to help people solve a problem in their life. And you're almost always the last resort. You are the person who makes the choice every day to show up to ensure that those who have needs, convenient or not, you give them the chance to get back on the road in a way that doesn't derail them. And so I think as we bring this kind of down to a little bit of a close for today, knowing that people have traveled all over the world to you, you don't need to do anything other than have them come to you. However, you're also working on making it more accessible to people, which goes above and beyond in the way that you operate. You're getting ready to put a tour together around the US to give people who don't have access to an expert like you, who cannot afford the geographic challenge to come see you and to specialize with you, to ultimately have a moment to be with you and to sign up as you do this road trip to allow the country to heal from migraines who may not have access in their backyards. Talk to me about where this concept came from, why this is so important to you, and how can people get on that wait list to, benefit from the love that comes through your fingers?
Yeah. So the website will just be, it's my name. It's my brand name. The migrainedoc.com is where you can go. By the time this is out, that part will be live and you'll be able to go there and you can just join the wait list. This has been, when we first started this, you guys don't know, but Brian obviously just checks in and he's like, hey man, how's it going? Like, how would you describe things? And I was like, just like, hey, things are good. And he's like, okay, no, if you know anything about Brian, he's like, well, get very specific, describe them. And it's like, in what we talked about this and all these stories leading up, for me, it's like I feel the most in alignment because the things that I've wanted to do but never would have imagined have just sort of been falling into place. So I'm going to give the smallest, little, quickest story because I think sometimes in your life you need to have this moment. The reason I know how, for me, heavy this moment was is a guy that I know and have been fortunate enough to meet, Patrick Bet David. If you've ever met this dude, he's such a cool guy. But he talks about one of the lowest points in his life and how he was struggling and how he was just like, man, I need a miracle. And the way that it happened was very similar to mine. So probably like 3 or 4 months ago in the shower, because we talked about this earlier, like water, something about the water. And I just get to think and I solve all my problems in here. And I just remember I was praying and I'm just talking with God. And at this point for me, I'm better after stuff. I'm a little bit more patient, but I'm not that patient. And I'm also sometimes like, I just want to be clear that I'm walking the path that I'm supposed to be on. And so I just decided I'm going to flat lay this out. God, if I'm not doing what you want me to do, I want you to close every door. I want you to basically make it impossible for me to like, if somehow I just got off track or I'm not going, like, just close them.
Give me a sign. Yeah, let me know.
Take it all away. I mean, every door is just like, shit, this door's locked and closed. This door's locked and closed. If that's the case, tell me, and I will listen, and I will work to figure out what that direction is. Now, most people will be like, okay, cool. Then the next statement, I think, is the most important one. But if I'm doing what it is that you want me to do, then I want you to bless it even more than what I can imagine, in a way that I don't even see is possible. And from that day has just been people traveling from all across the United States, even outside of the country, to come to the clinic. People finding me, people, my videos landing in the right people at the right time, those people reaching out, the team members that I've been able to hire and people to help me so that I can actually grow this thing. And a really, really, really good friend of mine that has always been around in the times that I needed him, one of my best friends, Scott, we were talking, and we were kind of talking about similar to this, of like, we were catching up, and I was telling him what's going on. And he was like, one of the things that you should look at is, like, some people travel to you, but he was like, what if you went to people? Now, there's a lot of legal logistic stuff that goes into this. And so I got to give him credit, because I'm one of those people. I like the credit to go to who gave the idea. He was like, dude, you could do, what if you just go to a place, you're there for a weekend, people show up, you do this. It's like, maybe some people can't get to you, but they'll drive a few hours, or they'll be in a place, or you go to a hub to kind of see. So, we're talking it through, and him and I have these sort of idea sessions with each other. Sometimes he's got a business here locally too. And I was like, I love this idea. So one of the things I've been blessed is I'm a pretty fast implementer. So I was just like, whip out my phone, I record a TikTok, and I post it. And I said, hey, if you've got migraines, you've been following me, and you've been wanting to do this, but you can't, would you be curious if I came to your area? And if you say yes, then comment over here where. That video right now is at like 125,000 views. It's got like 2,000 comments on it. It performed far greater than I expected. And I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something. So then fortunately, my friend, old Chatty G, or Chat GPT, as some people call it, I'm like, hey, legally, how can I do this? Because I have to get licensure. There's all these things. Well, come to find out, you can get temporary licensure in like 31 states inside of the United States for certain circumstances, including educational events, which I will be hosting. So most of the time that would be a giant just barrier. And I was like, well, I could go to somebody else's office. I could do it as a support to them. I can guide them and do all that, but I can't, which also would technically still work and probably have an impact. And I'm still going to have some component of that with what I'm doing. But this is just another thing for me that has created something that I've wanted to do, to travel, to do something where I can make an impact. And like most things lately, it has just fallen into place with effort. It still takes effort. It still takes work, but it is fallen into place in a way that I'm like, I think this can actually happen.
I'm seeing this evolve into an Airstream clinic, into a bus clinic, into a documentary series, into community events, and all of it I love. My friend, it's been a pleasure having you here with us today, and I'm grateful for your heart and your impact in this world. And so truly, I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and I love that you're still in mine and impacting so many others.
I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you. You know that I love you. I love what you do. All I want is for more people to have exposure to who you are and what it is that you do, because I know how you want to serve and how you show up for people, and how you just have this way of guiding people that is just such a gift that, I don't know where it comes from. I know you do, but it is a beautiful thing. And I hope that you continue to share it, because it is really, really necessary, and the world needs you.
Thank you, my friend. I will. There is no doubt about that in my mind. And for those of you who just watched Brandon jump in and flip open his lid, he talked about his whole story, the parts he's been unpacking and the parts he's still unpacking. But at the end of the day, he's somebody who brings people into alignment. And yet he struggled to find it for himself. He had to have a traumatic event to be able to kick him into a place to confirm that the path he was on is there, but he's just getting started. Everything is possible for you, but you will have to flip open your lid and scan your can.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.